Hello and welcome back to another video. Now today I'm going to be sharing with you the 10 things that I no longer buy. Now this is a video that I've wanted to make for a while because I don't know about you, but across social media and kind of across the media in general, I'm noticing a shift, and it's a shift that I like. And that shift is a rise in people being more conscious with what they buy, how they spend their money, how much they buy, and the types of things that they will and won't purchase. And generally we're seeing terms like no buy, low waste, de-influencing. I think it's great, and I think the reason that this is coming about is for a couple of reasons. Reason number one, and I think this is the most obvious reason, the cost of living. I think people are becoming more conscious of how they spend their money. I think people want more for their money. And as a result of the cost of living, I think people are just being more penny pinching. They are really thinking much more before parting with their pennies. Really asking yourself what you need rather than just kind of spending for that dopamine fix. So I would say that's the first reason why. I think the second reason why, and this one's kind of more down to interpretation, I think as a society, we are shifting in terms of what we value. I think during lockdown, we couldn't do that much. We couldn't go anywhere. So we were looking for ways to kind of get that high. And as a result, a lot of us were buying things. We couldn't go anywhere. So, you know, where else are we going to get that feeling of euphoria? And it's from buying things. When they arrive, you get that nice feeling, that sense of something new, something exciting. But I think as the years have progressed, what we've actually realized is really stuff doesn't make people happy. You know, it's nice to have nice things. Absolutely. I love nice things. But what really makes people happy is finding something deeper than stuff, whether it be connections, nature, learning, experiences. And I think as a society in general, we are starting to become a little bit more smart. And I found myself on that journey as well. As I say, I do like nice things, but I do much prefer experiences, learning new languages, making things from scratch, being in nature, doing things actually that cost less, and some of my favorite things to do are free. So I think those are two of the reasons I've noticed a shift in people's spending habits. So now that I've spoken about the reasons why I think there's a rise in de-influencing, in no buy years, in low buy years, things like that, I'm going to share with you the 10 things that I no longer buy or that I've never really bought in the first place. And it's definitely worth me noting that these 10 things are very personal to me, so you may relate to some of them you may totally disagree, and I'm always trying to add to this list as well. So definitely bear that in mind. This is just my list, and you can make your own list based on your lifestyle, your income, your priorities. They're going to differ from person to person. I'm certainly not a minimalist by any stretch, but I am definitely on a journey to just being a little bit more considered with what I buy and how much I buy. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Number one, and we're starting off with mass manufactured home decor. Now that sounds a little bit niche, but when I think of home decor and I think of mass manufactured, I think of those like cheap prints that I see on social media all the time, and just decor that's kind of there to fill a void, fill a space, but it doesn't really have much soul to it. Does that make sense? I would rather have a space with no decor at all and then to buy something that I see in a charity shop that maybe is an antique or has been done by a local artist, but something that really speaks to me, rather than just filling the space with what I personally would call tat. And I'm not saying everything that is mass manufactured is tat, but generally when I see these kind of ads, they usually come up on my Instagram, all the stuff kind of looks the same. It's kind of all plastic and it just doesn't really feel like it's got much depth to it. And you know, the argument might be that that type of artwork is cheaper. Potentially. But a lot of the decor I have in my home, in fact, all of the decor I have in my home has been bought secondhand, and I found some amazing pieces to upcycle, antique frames and things like that. So I would much rather have something that has personality, something that really speaks to what I like and my style, than just buying something that has purely been made for profit. It's purely been made to kind of fit an aesthetic. It's not me, it's something that I've never been interested in, and it's something that I simply don't buy. Number 2, and this is something that people buy for convenience, and that is anything that is a ready prepared meal. That could be anything like a microwave meal, or even things like cut up fruit. I've always found that one strange because I don't think cutting up fruit actually takes that long, and they're so expensive to buy, and they come in plastic. So I've never really been into kind of the ready meal, pre-prepared food side of things. But there's another reason why, and the other reason why I don't like pre-prepared food generally is because very often they are packed with things like stabilizers and added ingredients that you wouldn't usually have in your food if you'd made it from home. I can't imagine there's a time that you're cooking at home and you add a couple of stabilizers, a bit of sulfates into your food. So there's both a health reason why, but also a cost reason. These ready-made meals are expensive. Quite often, you can make those exact meals for a quarter of the price. They're gonna be tastier, they're gonna be better for you. And again, this is a personal thing. Maybe you don't have the time to cook from scratch. Absolutely, I can see why people buy them. It is a time thing, it is a convenience thing, or perhaps it's actually they don't know how to cook. And that brings me on to my next point. Another reason that I avoid buying them is sometimes it forces you out of your comfort zone to try and bake or cook something that you've not tried before. I'm the first to admit I am not the best cook. I'm a great baker, I love baking. Cooking's not my forte, and by not buying ready meals and things that are pre-prepared, it kind of forces me to learn something new, to learn a new skill. And if you are somebody that's short on time, there are lots of ways to pre-prepare food, to batch cook, freeze it, things like that. But I'm always so surprised at the cost of ready meal food. It always shocks me, especially when I can see, you know, you can make a meal that comes to like £1.50 a head. So the main reasons that I absolutely don't buy pre-prepared food: the environmental cost of it, all the packaging, the health side of it, they're full of added chemicals that you just don't need, and the educational side. I think it forces me more to try new recipes. Admittedly, they don't always go to plan, and my husband would definitely vouch for that. I've had some kitchen disasters, but it's a learning process, and it's just fun sometimes to, you know, try a new recipe and get yourself out of your comfort zone. Number 3, and this is one that I have had to really rein myself in on, and that is no new makeup until I've used up the makeup that I've got. Now, I've amazed myself at just how much makeup I've got. The other week, what I did was I went into all of my cupboards, all of my drawers, and I pulled out all of my makeup. The thing with me is I've got makeup kind of dotted all over. I've got some in makeup bags, some in boxes, some in drawers. And by having it kind of dotted around, you don't realize how much you've got. So I pulled it all together and I went through each and every item, checking the shades were correct, checking they actually had anything in them, because I had loads of empty mascaras lying around, checking that they were still in date to use and still safe to use. And once I'd kind of edited everything down, I realized I still had so much to use. So my current rule is, unless something has completely run out, I'm not buying anything else. It's very difficult because, you know, social media are constantly showing all of these like new must-have lipsticks, whatever it is. And, you know, I do love makeup. I'm passionate about it, I really do. So I'm really trying just to buy exactly what I need. So when it's run out, I can buy it again. And if there is 1 or 2 pieces that I am missing, maybe I want to try a new lipstick shade, I can be a bit flexible on that. But I'm not buying any duplicates. I'm not buying things I already have, like a new foundation when I haven't used my last one. And this is gonna save me a lot of money, but also a lot of space, because makeup kind of adds up and it becomes bulky. So it's saving me space, but it's also saving me a lot of money, because I am somebody that would prefer to have a higher end foundation or primer, but just one, then multiples of a more budget alternative, unless the budget alternative is really, really good. But generally I've got the makeup brands I like, I stick to the brands that I like, and yes, they're a little bit more on the pricey side, but if I just have one until it runs out, then that's what works for me. It also means as a result that I'm a little bit more sparing with how I use my makeup. I'm a little bit more careful. You know, I really want to make the things last and use them in a thoughtful way. Number 4, and kind of similar to number 3, but that's skincare. And again, when I looked at all of the skincare that I actually had, I was shocked at just how many skincare items I had collated over the years without even realizing how many moisturizers I had, how many serums I had. So what I did was I took it all together and then I categorized it to work out A, what I've got, and B, if there is anything missing, which there wasn't, but if there is anything missing, then I could identify that and have that as the item I'm allowed to buy. And then everything else, I'm working my way through it. So I am actually doing quite well now at working my way through some of my cleansers and through some of my different serums that I've got. It really allowed me to see it all in all of its glory. And until I've used up what I've got, I'm not buying anymore. I don't need to. I don't need the latest skincare. I don't need the latest trend. I've got skincare that works. I've got good quality skincare. I'm gonna use it until it runs out, and then and only then will I buy more. So don't feel pressured to always have the latest thing, because there's always gonna be something else. There's always going to be something that you don't have, and that's okay. It's not normal life to constantly be doing huge luxury skincare hauls. That's not the reality, and I actually prefer having less because it makes it easier for me to actually know what to use. And what I actually did when I'd kind of taken all the skincare and looked at it all was I went online and I worked out the order that I should be using everything in. I kind of looked at all of the ingredients and everything, and it just helped me understand A, what I had, and B, kind of how to use it in its most effective way. So it was a little bit of an education for me, because I feel like it's become so normal now to have these like huge like skincare fridges. I see it all the time, you know, like skincare restock and multiples of items, unless there's something that's on like a really good sale and it's an item that you've used for years, you know it's really good and you genuinely would be buying it again. You don't need to do like a skincare restock. That doesn't need to happen. You've only got one face. So don't feel like you've like not made it if you don't have like a massive skincare collection or like a skincare fridge. That's not normal. You don't need it. If you're into skincare, you just need an effective skincare routine. Use up what you've got and then replace it when you're running out. Okay, moving on to number 5. Now this is something that I used to buy until I realized that they're quite toxic, and that is air fresheners, like plug-in air fresheners. Not only do they look quite ugly, but they just have a very synthetic smell. So I no longer buy them, and instead I do have a couple of essential oil reed diffusers around my house, which are brilliant. I really love them. What's also great about them is once you've kind of got the reeds and the little diffuser bowl, you can then just refill them. You don't have to kind of use single-use plastic or buy cartridges or anything like that. If you are somebody that likes, you know, your house to smell nice, as many of us do, that's what I've done instead. So it's a more kind of natural route. It costs me less over time because you can just buy the essential oils and kind of dilute them. They last much longer and they do smell better. So I've stopped buying the plug-in air fresheners because I actually realized how kind of artificial they smelt, and they are actually quite pricey, and I didn't realize they're really dangerous for pets and animals. So that's definitely something worth looking into if you do have pets and you have them. Just check that they're safe for pets. Moving on to number 6, and this is something that I used to buy and I haven't been buying for probably about 6 months now. This is more of a newer one, and that is magazines. Now, I do love to chill out and read a book, to read a magazine. But the thing about magazines is they're very kind of time appropriate. So whereas you could have a book and you could reread it for many years, or you could sell it on to somebody, you could get it from a charity shop or you could get it from a library, magazines kind of have a shorter life cycle. So the way I felt about the magazine was it was kind of like throwing your money in the bin. You know, you'd buy it for £3, £4, £5, even some magazines like £8 now, and then you'd read it, and then the information was not really relevant anymore, or it was no longer of the time relevancy anymore, and then you just throw it in the paper recycling. So it was kind of like throwing your money away. So I just tend now to follow magazines online and to read their articles online, and for me that does actually save me quite a lot of money. I am a big reader in terms of self-help books. I love a self-help book. I find them really interesting. I always have one on the go, and I buy pretty much all of my books secondhand, either from World of Books or from Abe Books, and I've managed to find like £25 books for £3. Sometimes they might have like a little stain on them or a rip, but the text is still there. I can still read the information, and for me that is something that has kind of helped me with cutting down costs, but also cutting down waste. And I just find it's easier for me to read articles online and then to read books that very often I read a book 2-3 times, maybe give it to my sister or my mum. So magazines is something that I no longer buy. Next up, and an obvious one for the environment, and that is plastic water bottles. I know it can be difficult sometimes to remember to bring a water bottle out with you, but it is something that really does save me a lot of money over time. I have a couple of water bottles. I've got one that I have around the house that I always have. I've actually got it down here. This big one, I fill this up a couple of times a day. But then I've also got kind of a smaller one that I can fit in a handbag for taking out and about. And I never leave the house without it. Not only does it mean that I'm not buying plastic water bottles, better for the environment, but it also saves me a lot of money, because when you're out and about, particularly in like train stations or places where you're buying for convenience, you can find they're selling bottles of water, like, you know, small bottles of water for anywhere from £1.50 to like £3, which is crazy, and that adds up. So I always take a water bottle. So many public places now have refill stations, and most cafes and restaurants will fill up your bottle for you. Not always because of hygiene, I believe, but I'd say the majority will. Moving on to number 8. Now this is one that I've kind of dabbled in and out of over the years, and that is greetings cards. And the reason I've really moved away from buying greetings cards these days is because I actually find joy in hand making cards. Not only do I think handmade cards just look better, but it's also a very joyful experience to make your own card. And again, I know this is a time thing, not everybody has time to do this, but there's something about a handmade card that just has, again, that element of soul to it. It's got that added care, rather than a mass-produced card that you've paid £3 or £4 for. They're only going to end up in the bin anyway, let's be honest. And I've picked up lots of card making bits and bobs from charity shops over the years. I've got so many in a box, and it's really fun. I make birthday cards, I make Christmas cards, I make congratulations cards for engagements and weddings and things like that. And I just now would never spend £3 or £4 on a greetings card when I know that I've got a collection of card making supplies that I probably have spent no more than £15 on the entire box, and I can probably make about 30 cards from all the supplies that I've got. I've got cards, I've got the envelopes, I've got little stamps with letters on, I've got all sorts, because in charity shops there's so many crafting materials and they don't take up a lot of space. I've got a little box with a lid, it's all in there, it's got some glue in there, it's got double-sided sticky tape and things like that. So I do love to make a card, and sometimes, you know, if it's like a rainy day or I just want something that doesn't involve a screen, because don't we all just want to avoid screens these days, I will just make a couple of cards. I've made cards for my mum to give my dad, I've made cards for my husband to give his friends, and it's just something that I find enjoyable, but it also means I'm not, again, like buying into that mass manufactured, almost like personality-less product. It feels a bit more intentional, it feels more purposeful, and it's something that I enjoy. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand with saving money, but also kind of what I mentioned at the start, finding activities and things to do that bring you more purpose and joy than just stuff. Moving on to number 9, and that is anything that is a fashion trend. Now, all you see on social media these days are the videos that say, you know, top spring trends, trends you need this summer, all of that. And honestly, I personally can't think of anything worse than buying into a trend. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, trends are called trends for a reason. A trend rarely lasts for a long period of time, particularly in fashion and in the world of social media. I'm not going to spend money on something just because somebody tells me that it's trendy. I find that mentality actually quite strange. The second reason is I actually don't want to look like everybody else. I don't want to have what everybody else has. If there's something that I see that I really love and it happens to be the trendy thing or the in-style thing, that's fine. But I would rather buy things because I like them and because they appeal to me, they appeal to my personal taste. I love the design of them, I love the story of them, I love where they've been made, they speak to me in some way. I think having a personal style and buying clothes because you love them is so much more important than buying something just because it's trendy. And again, similar to the makeup that I mentioned earlier, there's always going to be a new trend. There's always going to be something new. That's how marketing works. That's how these big fashion brands and particularly the fast fashion brands make their money. They're always putting out something that is like a must-have. You've got to have it. And it's just unattainable. And I much prefer individuality. I much prefer to see people shopping in different ways, using what they've already got, restyling what they've already got, swapping clothes with their friends, buying from second-hand shops, making their own clothes. I'm so jealous of people that can make their own clothes. I think that is just incredible. And one day I would love to be able to make my own clothes. So I absolutely do not buy into trends, and I never watch the videos that, you know, are about the trendy things to have because they're changing all the time. It's unattainable. And I don't want to be trendy. I don't want to have a trendy wardrobe. I want to have a timeless wardrobe of things that I love and that I've bought because I really loved when I saw them, not because I was told that they were trendy. And moving on to number 10, and that is cheap or costume jewelry. Now let me explain what I mean because I have quite a distinct rule when it comes to jewelry and accessories. So I do not have the budget to be buying fine jewelry. I cannot go and buy the finest jewelry that is available. But what I can do is I can buy high quality jewelry. I can buy the metals such as gold plated, sterling silver. Those types of jewelry are in my budget. They're high quality, they're built to last, they don't irritate my ears or my skin. And as a result of the quality of the metals, they just look better in my opinion. So generally when it comes to jewelry, I don't buy into those kind of like costumey rings and things like that that turn your fingers green. What I would rather do is buy a couple of pieces of jewelry that are either vintage or secondhand, or you can find really well priced silver and gold plated jewelry out there. I've shared a couple of brands on videos in the past and I can share more in future if you're interested. These, for example, they're gold plated, they don't irritate my skin, and they're going to last. I wish I could always have solid gold, I can't, but you still can get that really high-end look and feel without spending into the thousands. You can absolutely find high quality for under £100 on places like Etsy. There's lots of brands that I shop from that definitely offer that look. And if I do want to buy those kind of more statement costumey pieces, I will go for the vintage route. I do love a vintage earring. If you've been on this channel for a while, you'll know. I have a couple of Dior and Chanel vintage earrings that I've bought on the secondhand market, which I love. And the great thing about vintage is the quality was much better then. Pretty much all of my costume jewelry that is designer is gold plated. That was the done thing back in kind of the 90s, and beforehand the jewelry was just better quality. That's why I love vintage. But if I'm not buying vintage and I'm looking for just some really nice timeless jewelry, I like a lot of pearls, I love like dainty little necklaces and statement earrings, I will go for gold plated. I'll buy quality rather than some of that jewelry that's just been made for the look, but the quality and the materials haven't been considered, and as a result it's probably going to break, it's going to turn your ear or your fingers green. It's just not going to be the experience that I think jewelry should be. Jewelry should make you feel great, and I would rather have less of quality than, you know, trying to buy the trendy costume jewelry that we see advertised to us. So those there were 10 things that I no longer and I don't buy. I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know if any of those things resonated with you, but also let me know some of the things that you no longer buy. I'd find that really, really interesting. If you did enjoy today's video and you're interested in secondhand shopping and luxury for less living tips, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm really enjoying making videos for you here, so I hope you're enjoying them. As always, a huge, huge thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you again in my next video. Bye!